So my homies Deyne,
I'm Michael.
Sylvano.
and today we're going to be discussing with you our time capsule of contemporary America from 2000 to 2012.
Our essential question is, what does it mean to be an American from the start of the 21st century to 2012?
So the start of the 21st century was not just the beginning of a new millennium, but it was also the era of dramatic change. Particularly in the United States, the definition of being an American was greatly influenced by many major events, innovations, and new ideologies. People began to focus on reducing inequality and discrimination by setting differences aside. Technology and social media proved to be a major contributor and an impetus for the social movements. America also faced many obstacles with the economy, and most notably terrorism. Terrorism caused a feeling of fear and uncertainty among the American people and contributed to America's engagement in many foreign affairs.
Hey, what's up guys? So quick heads up, this is going to be the time capsule we're going to be using for our presentation for today. So after each event that we explain, we're going to be putting our significant objects in here. So hope you guys enjoy.
Our first event is the September 11th terrorist attacks, which were terrorist attacks coordinated by the terrorist group Al-Qaeda, which was led by Osama bin Laden. The first attack was the attack on the Twin Towers, which was the most deadly. Two planes were crashed into both the Twin Towers, and the second one was a plane that was hijacked and crashed into the Pentagon. The last of the attacks was a plane that was hijacked that was supposed to be led to either the US Capitol or the White House, but the passengers overcame the hijackers and crashed it into a field in Pennsylvania. This campaign mainly led the US troops into a war in Afghanistan and an invasion of Iraq. The CIA led a raid on a compound which was believed to hold the terrorist leader of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden. And on May 2nd, 2011, a team of Navy SEALs and units from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment of the United States Army breached the compound and assassinated Osama bin Laden. Directly after the events of 9/11, President Bush would ultimately rush to sign the Patriot Act on October 26, 2001, in hopes to empower law enforcement and intelligence to prevent any future terrorist acts in America. This act was very controversial because it allowed the FBI to access personal information and increase the NSA's surveillance on American citizens without a cause of criminal activity. Many Americans believe that Section 215 of the Patriot Act violated the Fourth Amendment, which states that the government cannot conduct a search without a warrant and a probable cause for that search. And due to the increase in terrorism, people start to feel unsafe in America. The item we use to symbolize this event is a model airplane. This is because it shows that many things that people would assume to be otherwise safe could be potentially used to harm others. This increases the fear among the American population because they don't know when they're going to be in a dangerous situation.
So our second event is the development of social media and activism. So in 2004, Mark Zuckerberg started the social media networking site called Facebook. During this year, there's also a rise in the usage of hacktivism by groups such as Anonymous. Facebook quickly became an example for future social media networks and connected people from around the country without real-life interaction. Social media came with the power to dissolve boundaries dealing with age, culture, and region. However, the most notable usage of social media is giving people the ability to find new opportunities, ideas, and recruit people for movements or work. Groups such as Anonymous took advantage of this opportunity and made people change their beliefs and support certain political and social movements. This eventually became known as hacktivism, a term which refers to the usage of computers and computer networks to promote a social change or a political agenda. Hacktivism is still being utilized today, and for example, in 2011, there's a massive gathering of people in multiple BART stations protesting against a police shooting. In response, BART shut down cell phone service in the stations in an attempt to prevent the protesters from effectively communicating. Anonymous responded by using social media networks to gather even more protesters at Civic Center Station, and also released the private information of up to 102 BART police officers. So the object we decided to use to represent hacktivism and social media is the Guy Fawkes mask from Anonymous. So this object represents the intangible barrier that people can hide behind when using the internet to influence others. Alright, so our third event is the war in Iraq, which started on March 20th, 2003. Thousands of US troops were sent to the country of Iraq to start the Iraq War. Americans believed that Iraq and its leader Saddam Hussein were developing weapons of mass destruction, supporting terrorists, and abusing human rights. The US also believed that members of Al-Qaeda, the organization which claimed responsibility for the September 11th attacks, were in Iraq. When the war came to an end on December 18, 2011, failure of the US to find weapons of mass destruction created controversy about the real reason for sending troops to the invasion. So for the war in Iraq, we decided to use this jet called the F-15. This jet represents that the military that the United States sent was really advanced compared to the Iraq people, and the people in Iraq also had very primitive weapons to fight with, so they had to resort to tactics used by the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War.
Our next event is the war in Afghanistan, which started on October 7, 2001, and is still going on today. On October 7th, almost directly after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the US launched an invasion of Afghanistan after President Bush failed to negotiate with Al-Qaeda. The public aims of this invasion were to dismantle Al-Qaeda, the terrorist group that claimed responsibility for the 9/11 attacks, and deny it from creating a safe base of operation in Afghanistan by removing the Taliban from power. The invasion gained support from NATO and began receiving more support from the world after multiple accounts of human rights violations, war crimes, and other uses of chemical weapons such as white phosphorus. The number of US troops stationed in Afghanistan reached its peak around late 2010 at almost 100,000 troops. And the number wouldn't decrease until after 2012. And the war is still being fought in Afghanistan because the political order is still in shambles after multiple terrorist groups have emerged. And they're not just in Afghanistan too, but from surrounding countries as well, such as Syria, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, and other Middle Eastern countries. For the war in Afghanistan, we chose a more advanced aircraft, or more modern aircraft, and this jet is called the F-22 Raptor. It's a much more advanced jet with more stealth capabilities than the one used in Iraq. Since the Afghanistan war is still being fought today, this F-22 Raptor represents the modern usage of military technology and the expensive cost of war. Just one of these jets costs around $138 million to produce, unlike the F-15, which was used in Iraq, which cost around $31.1 million to produce.
Hey guys, so for our fifth event, we're going to talk about the illegal immigration in 2007. So during the year 2007, illegal immigration was at all-time high ever since the 9/11 attack. It was DACA was released by Barack Obama. The people of America were most paranoid from the fact that terrorism would be on the rise once more. This document has to be renewed every 3 years, and those immigrants were allowed to stay in the U.S. However, some people within the country thought that this was a bad idea, reason being that they didn't know whether or not these immigrants were actually dangerous. This led up to the hate crimes because they thought that these immigrants might harm the country once more. So one of the objects that we thought represented this part was a passport. This is because if you had a passport, that meant you were able to travel around the world and in the U.S. legally. If you didn't have a passport, it would mean that if you didn't have a passport and yet you were traveling, you would be called an illegal immigrant. Oh! Hello. We're going to be talking about our sixth event, the election of Barack Obama. The election of America's first black president, Barack Obama, was one of the most greatest events in U.S. history. Everyone in America and around the world could see the equal capability of a black individual compared to a white individual. Being an American began that you could achieve all your golden dreams no matter what race you are. He created Obamacare and DACA. The goals of Obamacare was to give Americans access to affordable health care and health insurance, improve healthcare quality, and to expand patient protections. DACA, on the other hand, was created to protect undocumented immigrants who came to America as children from deportation and allow them to work legally and to have a driver's license. So the object we think that represents this part of our era is the American flag. This American flag represents freedom, liberty, and human rights, which all were accounted for when Obama was elected. This election was a symbol of freedom for blacks, the art of a new opportunity, and showed blacks that were capable of the same rights as whites. Anyway guys, we're going to talk about our 7th event, which is the hate crimes of America. Hate crimes are prejudice crimes against race, gender or gender identity, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or ethnicity. Hate crimes were a result of illegal immigration because many people went out against immigrants entering the US, and when they did, they would get the bad end of the stick, resulting in a majority of these hate crimes. Hate crimes were beginning to rise, especially between 2005 and 2009. Racial tensions started to build in 2001, especially when the Cincinnati riots occurred, where an unarmed African American by the name of Timothy Thomas was shot dead by a patrolman. This sparked riots because this was an example of racial profiling and racism. In response, citizens rioted outside the police department for 4 straight nights, throwing objects, vandalizing businesses, as well as looting them. So we believe that the island represents this event is lighter. This is because it showed the rising tensions in America and the protests that were sparking up. Fire also spreads uncontrollably, just as much as the anger and frustration were spreading uncontrollably in the US.
So our 8th event is the Great Recession. The burst of the $8 trillion housing bubble on December 2007 triggered a collapse in business investment and cutbacks in consumer spending, eventually leading to massive job loss. In this recession, working class Americans had to face an increase in poverty, homelessness, and a loss of health insurance for many adults and children. To this day, the unemployment rate is still higher than it was before the recession, signaling a long, sluggish recovery. During this period, Americans were shown the reality of an unpredictable market and economy, even though racial and ethnic minorities were disproportionately hit by income and job loss compared to whites. This event also had an impact of what it meant to be an American, as people began to realize their susceptibility to the unstable housing market. So in order to represent poverty and unemployment caused by the Great Recession, we chose money. So dollar bills and pennies represent the income cutbacks of working class Americans, which results in paychecks and salaries that were insufficient for a decent living.
Alright, so our 9th event is Apple releases the very first iPhone. On June 29, 2007, Apple CEO Steve Jobs introduced the very first iPhone to the public and received heavy media attention. Not only that, but they were already at the top of their technological industry and years above their peers with the inventions of the laptop and the iPod. This marked a significant changing point of this era because it was a turning point in technology that no one ever thought that would, come about, especially with a smartphone. The company was in a race against other companies because they wanted to get their advanced technology out there as soon as possible. So we believe that an obvious symbol that represents the development of Apple smartphones is an Apple smartphone, the iPhone 5. We use this iPhone to symbolize the development of the Apple smartphone because the iPhone 5 shows how far technology has improved in a decade. As we have here, we have the iPhone 3G, iPhone 5. You can tell how far technology has come, in which we are currently living in.
Event 10, the capture of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was the dictatorial president of Iraq. After the 9/11 attacks, the US was worried that Saddam was providing terrorists with chemical weapons, developing weapons of mass destruction. The US then began the disarmament process of Iraq, but Saddam failed to cooperate, angering the US and the UN. Its failure to comply forced President George W. Bush to order Saddam Hussein to step down as president of Iraq or face war on March 17, 2003. Saddam refused, and it prompted the US to invade Iraq on March 28, 2003, starting the war in Iraq. Saddam was captured in a small underground hiding place, and he was put on trial and convicted of crimes against humanity, which included willful killing, illegal imprisonment, and torture. He was sentenced to death by hanging on December 30, 2006. We decided that a paper warhead would be an appropriate symbol for the chemical and nuclear weapons that the Americans feared Saddam Hussein and the people of Iraq were developing in secret for the terrorists.
From 2000 to 2012, the way Americans perceive themselves changed substantially, whether based on their societal role or position, their ideologies, or their fears. All were influenced by major events and innovations.
One of the most significant events, the September 11 terrorist attacks, dragged attention to many foreign affairs such as the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq. Other events such as the war on hate crimes and illegal immigration occurred concurrently with terrorism.
In this decade, All the events were magnified and influenced by the development of social media and hacktivism. The Americans had to adapt to a life of fear and uncertainty and the power to influence society with the internet.